better or best. When Dad first showed him the new house, he was speechless, which says a lot for a boy in his late teens. It was huge. There were beautiful new indoor spaces winding in and out of jaw-dropping outdoor spaces. Bedrooms on lagoons, natural waterfall showers in bathrooms, and kitchens within steps of green grocer gardens. And the weather was so beautiful day and night that there was absolutely no need for ceilings. He was so thankful. He couldn't wait to show his new bride. So he gave his dad a huge hug and raced off to find her. Well, she loved the new house as much as her husband did. It was so cool to be walking 1 minute on plush carpeting and stepping through the next doorway onto the softest moss grass her toes had ever felt. The whole house felt and smelt like a garden in full bloom. It was just heavenly. And they got to take walks with Dad every evening, when they could ask him questions about everything they'd seen and found. And he could show them new places and new things that would always cause more amazement and wonder. You know, he'd say, it was the family business that's made all this possible. And it's been the joy of my heart to see it come together with such beauty and to be able to get it ready to pass on to you as you learn the skills and abilities that I've been longing to teach you. There's so much beauty to be discovered here and so much more to be produced. But that can only come if you're willing to be students for a while. But I promise that even your time as a student will be amazing and valuable. We have so much to do together, Dad almost shouted in joy. There was only one kind of weird rule. Apparently, there was one room in the whole mega mansion that Dad didn't want them to use, or even to see. He said that opening that door would totally cut off their training, and even their ability for him to talk with them. Just trust me, he advised. Don't open any closed doors without first asking me about it. Well, since they hadn't seen any closed doors anywhere, they didn't really care. I mean, if Dad had some secrets, that's up to him. Until one day, when the man's wife did find 2 closed doors in a well-lit but distant part of the house. Over the one door was an easy-to-read sign that simply said, "Best." Over the other was one of those neon kind of signs where the letters are all connected like a snake was spelling them out. It was a little harder to read, but what it lacked in clarity, it made up for in bright. She stared at it for a minute, and the word finally became obvious. Better was the message above the other door. Now she wondered which door was labeled first. Did best come after better had been sampled? Or were new discoveries made after best was labeled, thus requiring the new and better door? So she opened the unlocked better door and peeked her head in, just to get a glimpse of what might be going on. A thunderous boom shook the floor and resonated deep within her chest as her eyes met sights that she could not possibly describe without words that she hadn't learned yet, like kaleidoscope and colorfully chaotic. She processed what little she could and then quickly closed the door as she ran to get her husband. "You've got to see this," she exuded, and she swept him off in the direction of her new discovery. Talking so fast he couldn't possibly understand, let alone keep up, she tried to describe the indescribable things she'd seen, till they both suddenly came face to face with the newly discovered doors. Although he was surprised by the sight, her husband did have the presence of mind to stop and consider what they were about to do. I mean, Dad's warning about the closed doors was pretty clear, and here are the first 2 closed doors they had ever found in the whole house. So the chances of these being the cause of his warning were pretty high. But then a strange new thinking process began to kick in. His thoughts took on a new flexibility that he wasn't familiar with. He looked at the labels and began to think. Actually, there was only one door that we were never to open, so at least one of these doors is totally safe. And the labels both suggest something good, so it was more probable that these weren't even the doors Dad was talking about. These new thoughts felt kind of good, even though they felt separate from Dad's way of thinking. And he could just call Dad like he was asked to, but he decided to call this one on his own and carefully opened the better door. The thunderous boom still shook the floor, but was a little less severe in their chests this time. And the sights and sounds did not disappoint. They were enthralled by the contrast of chaotic color compared to the clarity and order they were so used to. Their heads spun as strange sounds echoed and twisted through the uneven and disturbing new landscape. And while the chaos wasn't nearly as comforting as the sweet order and flow they were accustomed to, the newness opened their eyes to how much more was happening in their world than they'd ever been aware of. And that evening, when they were walking with Dad, he mentioned something about the importance of order, to which his son casually mentioned, unless some disorder can actually help us to better appreciate order. Dad recognized this flawed logic and stopped in his tracks. Have you opened the door I told you never to open? Well, I didn't think it was the one, his son said defensively. It just said better, so I thought it would be good. But didn't I ask you to talk to me before opening any doors? Well, yes, but I thought it would be okay because of the label better. Well, that label was a lie from the moment it was put up. It was put there by an enemy who didn't want you to discover all the power and the beauty that awaited you inside the best door, which is exactly what I was planning to show you tomorrow. But now, you may never enter the best door under any circumstances. You've completely cut yourselves off from me and the family business forever, Dad cried in dismay. And sure enough, their lives changed from that very moment. They learned that the best door had been opening every morning and was actually the source of the beauty and order of the whole house. It was also the way Dad would come and go each day. Now they found out the door was permanently shut. It didn't take long before the chaos crept out of it into its new freedom. And it turned out that confusion travels 100 times the speed of order, since the results are not bound by usefulness or benefit. And the love that Dad invested in them and their world, gone. They say gone for good, but there's no good in that gone. The only thing that had become clearer and more ordered was the devastating effects of their decision. It wasn't the colors or the curiosity of the chaos that tempted them to enter. No. It was a breakout of a secret desire they each had to make their own choice in a matter. They just wanted what they wanted, their own will. And that's exactly what they got. But what they thought would be an innocent exercise in choice, thinking they could then come back and also enjoy Dad's will, now showed itself as the rebellion that from that moment on would judge and overrule any other will than their own, even Dad's. Their misery and lament could do nothing to reopen the door that had always been in place to provide for their best. It could only set in motion the deadly plan to rescue and restore them back to a place where they could again be an amazing part of Dad's will. And set that plan in motion it did. But the cost to simply get them back to the point of that one decision was immeasurable.